Yours to melt by Rimu-Chi. What if I love you? Rimuru's POV. A week had passed since Milam descended upon Tempest like a hyperactive storm wrapped in pink hair and boundless energy. To say she was a handful would have been the understatement of the century. Every morning began with a bang. Literally. As Milam blasted through doors instead of opening them, claiming it was more fun that way. No matter how many times I explained the concept of doorknobs and courtesy, she'd flash her toothy grin, throw her arms in the air, and shout, "But where's the excitement in that?" It didn't help that her destructive tendencies were only matched by her speed. One minute she was in the dining hall, wolfing down a barrel of honey-glazed meats, and the next she was perched on the guild's roof, challenging passing birds to aerial duels. I tried, I really did. I even sat her down with a carefully written set of Milam rules for not exploding things, laminated and everything. She used it as a paper airplane. It exploded. "Milam, could you please stop knocking down the walls every time you enter a room?" I asked her once, right after she reduced the conference hall's main entrance to rubble with a single enthusiastic kick. She tilted her head. "But bestie, punching walls is the best part of walking." "Master, the likelihood of her adapting to standard behavioral expectations is statistically negligible without consistent maternal influence." "What are you trying to say?" "That Miss Shizu's presence appears to have a pacifying effect. Their interactions mimic a mother-daughter bond. It is effective. I recommend observation. Also, it is adorable." "Did you just say adorable?" Statement stands. "You appear jealous?" "I am not jealous." I slapped my cheeks to reset my thoughts, ignoring the warmth rising to them. Yet, it was hard to deny. Whenever Shizu talked to Milam, the entire world seemed to settle into a different rhythm. Milam, who would tackle me like a meteor one moment, suddenly sat with her hands folded, listening attentively like a child being read a bedtime story. Sometimes she even helped in the kitchen when Shizu asked. It made me feel oddly displaced. Like watching someone else live a piece of the life I once dreamed about in my old world. Still, I was glad for it. Milam needed someone who could reach her without brute force, and Shizu, in her quiet grace, managed it effortlessly. Of course, Milam's playfulness wasn't limited to our internal affairs. 3 days ago, 3 unfamiliar auras surged toward Tempest's heart. I'd barely activated my detection barriers when they stormed the gates, loud, arrogant, and demanding. I, Phobio the Furious, acting on behalf of Demon Lord Carrion, declare that Tempest shall henceforth fall under the dominion of the beast kingdom of Eurazania. He had bellowed, flanked by 2 equally haughty subordinates who looked ready to gnaw on furniture. I was halfway to the plaza when a pink blur cut across the skyline. By the time I arrived, Phobio was unconscious in a crater the size of a small barn, drool trickling from his mouth, his companions groaning beside him. "Milam," I'd shouted, barely restraining my exasperation. "You can't just punch your way through diplomacy." But he was annoying, she pouted, arms folded, "and I didn't even go full power, aren't you proud?" Shizu had smiled faintly. It was efficient. Don't encourage her. We sent Phobio and his lackeys back home, with a message. If Carrion wanted alliance, he'd better come himself. If he wanted submission, we were ready for war. Because I had Veldora. And perhaps, not just Veldora anymore. Velgrynd had remained a distant, elegant presence this past week, aloof and detached as always, her every word wrapped in frost-laced pride and impossible beauty. But something had shifted. She no longer disappeared the moment I spoke. She listened. She even answered. Sometimes, when we crossed paths in the gardens or by the lake, we'd speak, not deeply, not yet, but genuinely. She told me her thoughts on battle formations, offered curt critiques of our barrier placements, even pointed out ways to improve our elemental mana conduits. Nothing personal, nothing revealing. But it was conversation. She still turned away when I noticed her faint blushes, when our eyes met too long, when I thanked her too earnestly. Pride armored her like flame. But I could see through it now, just a little. "Master. Your heartbeat quickens when you observe her reactions. You are exhibiting signs of elevated emotional attachment." "What did you say?" "Reciting the observable data. You instructed me not to analyze your emotions without prompting. However, your current pattern indicates romantic inclination. I explicitly told you not to do that, correction acknowledged. But I remain curious. Her presence appears to affect your neural feedback more than others." I swear, you're turning into a gossip app. Would you prefer I install a romantic advice module? No. Gods, no. I groaned, dragging my palm down my face, trying to hide the reddening tips of my ears. Still, Great Sage had a point, even if I hated admitting it. Velgrynd. There was something about her. Not just beauty or strength or pride. Something else. A pull. Like familiarity wrapped in mystery. I now knew there were 4 true dragons created by Veldanaba, the eldest, long dead with his wife Lucia. Their daughter Milam was the last legacy of that lineage. Veldora was the youngest. And Velzard White Ice Dragon was the second eldest. Velgrynd, the Crimson Storm, second born, both fearsome and majestic. Power meant everything to her. She respected only strength, of body, will, soul. And yet, she stayed. She talked. She began to see me, not just as the slime who stumbled into her lake, but as someone who might stand beside her one day. That terrified and thrilled me in equal measure. Meanwhile, Veldora, my supposed dragon buddy and brother, had been acting increasingly strange. Every night, without fail, he disappeared before Velgrynd appeared. Either he went to sleep early, or he suddenly remembered an ancient manga he had to finish. He even installed a door lock on his room, which was hilarious considering no door in Tempest could stop Velgrynd if she truly wanted in. When I asked him about it, he nearly fainted, eyes wide, face pale. I will not discuss it, he said. I have done nothing wrong, absolutely nothing. Tell her that. Tell who? No one. I'm going to bed, forever. Eventually, I would ask Velgrynd. Just, not yet. She scared even Veldora, and that was saying something. But despite all the chaos, the politics, and the dragons, one feeling kept creeping into the edges of my mind. It wasn't logical, it wasn't calculated, it felt like I had known her forever. Like we were always meant to meet here, in this improbable life. Her voice haunted my thoughts when I wasn't ready for it. Her laughter, even the rare, haughty scoff, played like music in the back of my head. And when I saw her wings flare against the sunset sky, every part of me stilled. She wasn't just a dragon, she was something I didn't understand yet. But wanted to. Deeply. Desperately. And maybe, just maybe, she wanted to understand me too. The soft rustling of paper blended with the humming of a tune long lost to memory as I sat at my polished obsidianwood desk, its surface gleaming under the warm light of the sun filtering through the cathedral like windows of the council chamber. The room, designed to be a reflection of Tempest itself, elegant, functional, and harmonized, was unusually quiet this afternoon, save for the faint whisper of wind outside and the scratch of a brush through soft hair. To my right, sprawled sideways across a large cushion like a noble cat, was Veldora, completely absorbed in the latest issue of Battle Saga Ultra Dagger X, holding the manga so close to his face that I was starting to wonder if he was trying to absorb the ink with his eyeballs. Across from us on the long velvet-lined couch, Shizu sat gracefully, her white-gloved hands moving gently through Milam's candy-pink hair. Milam, cross-legged and swaying her head, hummed some cheerful song under her breath, content as a kitten being groomed. The kind of rare, domestic scene you'd never expect from a household containing 3 nuclear warheads in human shape. And yet, here we were, but my eyes weren't on them. They were fixed on the gray-covered book resting open before me, a strange, aged tome whose spine cracked like old bone and whose pages smelled faintly of ash and cedar. I'd found it near the edge of the lake. The lake where Velgrynd had first appeared before me. Where she had misnamed me Ashura. Where her eyes, fierce, golden, sorrowful, had seen something I hadn't understood then, maybe still didn't. The book had no title. No recognizable alphabet. The writing, thin, looping, etched into the page like a whisper, wasn't a language known in Tempest. I had consulted the scholars, the archivists, even the goblin sages. Nothing. I'd asked Veldora once. He peered at it, scratched his jaw, and shrugged. It's not a manga, therefore, it's hard. Shizu, thoughtful as always, had stared at it for a long moment, then shook her head. I don't know this script either. It's ancient. And so, it remained a mystery. Yet, for some reason I couldn't explain, I kept returning to it. Something about it pulled at me, familiar, yet distant. Like a dream half remembered after waking. Still trying to understand that book? Shizu asked gently, pausing her brushing as she glanced over at me. Yeah, I replied, not looking up. I don't know why, but it feels like I should understand it. Like it belongs to me. Veldora grunted from his cushion without looking up. If it were a manga, I'd have finished it already. But it's not. So, I won't. I sighed. Thank you, O great dragon of wisdom. Your insight, as always, is earth-shattering. Praise accepted, he said proudly, turning a page with dramatic flair. Then Milam piped up. Bestie. Why don't you understand that book if you can read everything else? It's in a language no one's ever seen before, I explained. Not even the oldest of monsters. In Tempest recognize it. It's like it came from somewhere else entirely. Milam blinked at me, tilting her head, but it says, Ashura's Diary, right on the front. I froze. My chair creaked as I straightened up, slowly turning to face her. What did you say? Milam pointed at the cover with one tiny finger. Right there. Ashura's Diary. See, it's in the old code. I learned a bit from Auntie Velzard. Shizu's brows lifted. Velzard, as in, the elder sister of Velgrynd and Veldora? Milam nodded proudly. Yup. Auntie Velzard was a super strict teacher, cold and scary and always giving me impossible homework. She said this language would serve me in the distant future, or something. I stared at her, my thoughts spinning. This might actually be that future, I muttered. Milam, could you read this for me, please? Milam beamed. Sure. Let's see. She leaned over the book, her expression squinting in childish concentration, and began flipping through the pages with surprising delicacy. The humming stopped. The room grew quiet. Ashura was the name of the one who wrote this, Milam began, voice lilting as she read aloud. He said, I don't want to live. I shouldn't have been born. I am an unnecessary existence. Whoa. The words landed like stones in the silence. My breath caught in my throat. The lake, I murmured, eyes wide. The lake where I found the book. Where she appeared. Milam turned the page. It says he was sealed there, near the lake, and that he met Auntie Velgrynd during his last days. I felt a jolt in my chest. Vanished? I echoed. You mean, he died? Milam shrugged. Dunno. Just says he disappeared. Oh, and here's a weird part. It says he was a natural counterpart. But there was already an official one. So, he wasn't needed. She looked up, her face scrunched. What's that even mean? I didn't answer immediately. My gaze drifted to the silver-blue hair that fell across my eyes, to my own reflection in the glass. The term echoed through me like a distant bell. Unnecessary existence. Natural counterpart. Master. The phrase may indicate a parallel being, something born spontaneously due to a cosmic imbalance. A correction the world itself rejects. So he was like an extra piece, I muttered. Affirmative. Likely not born through divine intent, but as a reaction to an already existing entity. Such beings are unstable in both existence and purpose. Milam flipped toward the final pages. Ooh. It says that Ashura vanished, but left behind a promise. My heart thudded. What promise? She pointed at the inked symbols. It says, I will return. To her. No matter how long it takes. Shizu's voice was soft. Could it be? I finished the thought without thinking. Velgrynd. The name hung in the air like a flame that refused to die. I looked down at the book again, at the archaic letters I couldn't read but now felt. There was something raw about them, something honest. That promise wasn't written as hope, it was written as certainty. And in my chest, something flickered, a terrible unease. And a quiet, inexplicable warmth. Third person POV . The night was serene, with a deep, velvety sky unfurling overhead like a silken curtain stitched with stars. Each one a distant ember flickering in the quiet of eternity. The lake, still and crystalline, mirrored the heavens with such clarity that it was as if Rimuru sat between two infinite worlds. He perched upon a smooth, flat rock near the lake's edge, its surface cooled by the night air and flecked with the faint dew of twilight mist. The moon hung high and pale, bathing the garden in gentle silver, its glow glancing across the surface of the water and catching in Rimuru's silver-blue hair, lending him a celestial radiance. In his lap rested the ash-gray book. The same one that had confounded even the most brilliant minds of Tempest. Now, though, its mysterious language had begun to yield its secrets, thanks to Milam's cryptic hints and the tireless efforts of the one entity Rimuru trusted above all. Great Sage, Rimuru murmured, fingers tracing the strange characters inked with haunting precision on the time-worn pages. We've come far, haven't we? Indeed, Master. The structure of the language was unusually complex, incorporating archaic grammatical forms and ciphered phonetic layers. However, and here, the tone of her voice shifted, swelling with what almost sounded like pride, as expected of me. I have successfully completed a full linguistic decryption. You may now read and interpret the contents without further delay. Rimuru chuckled softly, amusement coloring his features as he gazed down at the open diary. Hey. You're in a good mood tonight, proud of yourself? Naturally, Master. After all, this language predates even the known records of the Dragonkin. Its restoration is no small achievement. You're right, Rimuru nodded, his smile fading as the weight of the words before him sank in. This diary, it's more than I thought. This Ashura wasn't just anyone. The ink scrawled in delicate strokes told of pain, of quiet despair. A man named Ashura, sealed away beneath the earth, unloved and unwanted by the very world that bore him. A self-declared, unnecessary existence. And within that melancholy confession was described a power unlike anything Rimuru had ever encountered. Temodas, Lord of Destruction. An ultimate skill not forged by faith, wrath, or desire, but by resignation. It was born of sheer destructive will, the embodiment of oblivion itself. The book described the terrifying magnitude of the skill in visceral detail, how it could unravel barriers, dissolve matter, shatter even the concept of resistance. And more curiously still, Temodas carried the user's will in memories even after death, like a torch passed forward in defiance of oblivion. Is that even possible? Rimuru whispered, eyes scanning the passage again. A skill that carries someone's will, like a second soul? It is theoretically plausible, Master. However, it should be noted that ultimate skills cannot be gained simply by reading about them. They require immense evolution of the soul, extreme circumstances, or divine intervention. This skill, Temodas, cannot be claimed through desire alone. Rimuru exhaled slowly, a thoughtful frown tightening his brow. Yeah, I figured as much. I'm not trying to steal someone else's legacy. It's just, if he really left his will behind, maybe there's a reason it ended up in my hands. A logical deduction. Great Sage pause. Perhaps this Ashura's remnants sought a successor, or perhaps he sought understanding. A sudden gust of wind swept across the water, carrying the scent of scorched ozone and ancient heat. Rimuru looked up. She descended like a crimson comet, her wings catching the moonlight in fiery arcs. Velgrynd, the scorched dragon herself. Her long, dark blue hair billowed behind her like a royal mantle, the sleek black cheongsam clinging to her flawless form, golden dragon embroidery gleaming with every movement. She landed with elegance and untouchable grace, her golden eyes narrowing as they found Rimuru waiting for her. You're early. Again, she said, arms crossing under her chest, tone clipped, almost accusatory. I thought I'd come early so I could see you arrive, Rimuru replied smoothly, flashing a disarming smile. Velgrynd blinked, just once, but her posture stiffened for a fraction of a second. HMPH. Ridiculous, she muttered, turning her gaze aside. But not before Rimuru caught it. The faint pink rising along her cheeks. She was blushing again. He tapped the book lightly with one finger. You recognize this book, don't you? Velgrynd's gaze snapped back to him, fierce and sharp, but it softened just as quickly. No, not really. Don't lie to me. Rimuru's tone was gentle, but firm. You knew Ashura. You came to this lake every night for a reason. I think he mattered to you. Velgrynd looked away again, golden eyes shadowed. Her voice, when it came, was barely above a whisper. Yes. 4,000 years ago, I met him. But he's gone now. Rimuru's chest tightened at the honesty in her voice, and the pain that lingered beneath it. Yet he didn't push further. Instead, he offered a quiet nod and said, all right. Let's not talk about the past. HMPH, she replied, but her eyes softened with gratitude. So, Rimuru leaned back slightly, resting his arms behind him on the rock. When are you coming to Tempest? I don't know yet, Velgrynd replied, eyes flicking toward the moonlit forest. It depends on many things. I see. He tilted his head. Then let me ask you something else. Do you love this Ashura person? Velgrynd immediately recoiled, a spark of flame dancing behind her eyes. No, I was merely intrigued by his unique nature, that's all. Don't mistake my curiosity for something foolish. But Rimuru saw through it. The fire in her voice was meant to hide something softer, something fragile, and once more, there was that faint dusting of blush on her cheeks. He smiled. Got it. Just curious, huh? She turned away sharply. You're insufferable. They talked for a while after that, of trivial things, of the stars, of Tempest's latest political maneuverings, of Veldora's obsession with manga and Milam's chaotic influence. Time passed unnoticed, their words flowing like the wind through the trees. Despite her pride, Velgrynd stayed longer than she ever had before. Eventually, she stood and stretched her wings. It's time for me to go. Rimuru looked up at her, the moonlight haloing her form. All right. See you tomorrow, then? Velgrynd hesitated. Then, with a quiet murmur, if I feel like it. With a single beat of her wings, she took to the sky, flames trailing behind her like the tail of a dying star. Rimuru watched her go, the silence of the lake returning in her wake. In his heart, something stirred, an unease he couldn't name, and yet a strange warmth as well. The name Ashura echoed like a half-remembered dream, and so did that final passage. A promise to return, to someone. Rimuru exhaled. Velgrynd. Master, Great Sage's voice intruded softly, your heart rate is elevated. Emotional resonance detected. He laughed under his breath. Thanks, Great Sage, I hadn't noticed. That was sarcasm, Master. I am aware, and with that, the lake grew still again, holding within its depths the memory of a man who had vanished, and the unspoken bond between a dragon and the one who might yet inherit his will. Third person POV VELGRYND The sun above the Eastern Empire cast its golden light through towering spires and iron-laced banners, gilding the vast citadel in the hue of victory and conquest. The Empire's capital, an intricate, cold labyrinth of military discipline and rigid command, echoed with the marching of boots, the rustling of cloaks, and the mechanical rhythm of control. Even the wind seemed to bow to the Imperium here. Velgrynd walked slowly down the silent stone hallway outside the throne chamber, her heels clicking faintly against the polished obsidian floor, each step sharp and certain. Her long, dark blue hair, woven into elegant twin buns with streaming silken trails, barely stirred despite the passing breeze that rolled in through the open arches. She bore herself with a commanding, almost imperious grace, regal, unbent, untouchable. And yet, her golden eyes, ever focused and proud, wavered ever so slightly with the memory of him. He knew Ashura. Worse, he held that cursed book, the one I sealed beneath the lake. Velgrynd's brows knit tightly. Her sharp nails curled into her gloved palm. That slime. That baffling, aggravating, infuriating slime. Rimuru. How had he learned the language of that book? Even she, Velgrynd the Flame Dragon, had failed to comprehend the archaic tongue that Ashura, he used in his final writings. It wasn't written in Veldenavian script, nor in any demonic dialect, and the divine runes had long since faded from mortal memory. And yet, Rimuru had read it effortlessly, as if he had known Ashura himself. How? She could still hear his voice beneath the moonlight, echoing like the gentle waves of that cursed lake. You knew him, didn't you? Her throat tightened. Yes. But she didn't want to admit it, not to Rimuru, not to herself. She pressed a hand against one of the arched columns, the cold stone grounding her thoughts for only a moment. Her heart, traitorous thing that it was, beat unevenly. It hadn't done that in over a millennium. What is happening to me? A sudden pressure struck her shoulder, light, casual. She turned, already bristling. It was him. Rudra. Dressed in his imperial garb, white and gold, with that insufferable, knowing smile on his lips. You're far too quiet today, he said, tilting his head with that roguish glint in his eyes. That's rare for you, Velgrynd. Let me guess. You're thinking about me, Her glare could have melted through steel. You don't need to know, she answered curtly, brushing past him. But Rudra, ever the pest, stepped alongside her. Ah, cold as ever.
But that's what I like about you, unreachable, untamed, yet always here. By my side.
She paused mid-step, turning to face him. You are mistaken, Rudra. I am here for the balance of power, not for you. He chuckled, unfazed. That balance seems shakier every time you return from your little excursions. You're seeing someone, aren't you? One of your dragon flings? Take your hand off me, Velgrynd said sharply, jerking away from his grasp. Her voice rang through the hallway like a blade drawn. You don't have the right to touch me, Rudra. I am not one of your maids. The smile faltered, only slightly. And if you ever flirt with me like that again, she added with searing heat, I will leave the empire. Balance or not. Try me once, and see what happens. With that, she spun on her heels and walked away, her head held high, her heartbeat erratic. I should have left long ago. Only the tenuous, precarious tension between the forces of Guy Crimson and the Eastern Empire held her here. If she disappeared, Rudra's ambitions would spiral, and the balance that kept the world in stasis might shatter.
But perhaps it was already cracking. Her wings burst forth as she reached the outer ramparts, crimson and gold, radiant against the cold skies.
Without hesitation, she leapt into the air and soared. The clouds parted as her body cut through them like a blade, the wind roaring around her as she ascended higher, faster, away from the rigid prison of marble and politics. Below her, the forests turned to valleys, then rivers, and at last the familiar wildlands near Tempest. It was still 2 hours before sunset, the sun already beginning its descent into the western horizon, casting a warm hue across the sky. Her sharp eyes scanned the lands, and froze. There it was. A familiar, looming presence, bestial, chaotic, unfinished. Charybdis. Not fully awakened, no, not yet in its perfect destructive form, but potent nonetheless. Strong enough to obliterate cities. Strong enough to challenge a demon lord-class warrior. She hovered above a hilltop, cloaked in flame and silence, gazing down at the battlefield. And there, surrounding the beast, they stood.
Rimuru, Milam, Veldora, Shizu, and others, figures she recognized only by their aura, never by name. Too prideful to bother remembering mortals. But they were not weak.
One, a red-haired Kijin, manipulated hellfire with feral precision, Benimaru, though she did not call him that, launching searing waves of destruction at the beast's flanks.
Another, a massive direwolf running in midair with a purple-haired woman wielding a colossal blade, Xian and Ronga, landed blow after blow on Charybdis, tearing at its hardened scales. She watched as the girl actually damaged the beast's outer shell.
Impressive. Then came the swordsman, older, seasoned, cutting down hordes of the flying piranha-like creatures Charybdis summoned, dispatching them with an elegance that spoke of centuries of practice. Still, the tide had not turned. The battle had clearly begun long before she arrived, and Charybdis was far from finished.
And so, Velgrynd waited. Would Rimuru act? Would he allow Milam, chaotic, playful, volatile Milam, to destroy the monster for him, or would he step forward himself, as a true leader should?
Her eyes narrowed. Show me what you'll do, Rimuru. Show me if your strength is your own, or if you are merely hiding behind borrowed power. She hovered in silence, arms crossed, expression unreadable save for a glint of something, perhaps curiosity, perhaps anticipation, in her golden eyes.
She would not intervene. Not yet. Let's see what kind of king you truly are.
The sky was still. A vast ocean of muted golds and deepening blues stretched endlessly above the battlefield, with the sun dipping slowly toward the horizon, painting the clouds in burnt amber. And there, high above them all, veiled by wisps of white and untouched by the fray, Velgrynd hovered in the quiet hush of the heavens. Her presence, cloaked by true draconic magic, went unnoticed, unreachable. No one below could sense her. Not Rimuru.
How pathetic, she thought, narrowing her eyes at the battle unfolding far beneath her boots. These little soldiers, his precious subordinates, they could barely scratch that oversized fish. Charybdis, not even fully awakened, and yet it was giving them such trouble.
If it were me, she scoffed internally, wings flickering with quiet disdain, I would have ended it the moment it surfaced. One strike. One breath. Still, her golden gaze lingered, watching, and then, she heard it. With her heightened senses, a perk of being a true dragon born of flame and wrath, Velgrynd picked up a familiar, chirpy voice. Ooh, can I fight it now? Please, bestie. Let me beat the flying big fish. Milam's voice, shrill and childlike, rang out across the battlefield. Velgrynd exhaled sharply through her nose. Of course that air-headed whelp would call Charybdis a flying fish. Typical, and then. No, Rimuru replied, his voice calm, resolute. This is Tempest's problem. I'll handle it. Velgrynd blinked. What? She expected Milam to throw a tantrum, kick and scream like always. But instead, it was the woman beside her, Shizu, that gently stepped in. Milam, Shizu said with that ever-serene tone, this is his nation's trial. You should respect his choice. There was a pause. Milam visibly sulked, puffed her cheeks, but then nodded. Fine. Velgrynd's pupils narrowed in disbelief. What sorcery is this? Since when could anyone talk Milam down so easily? She expected that from Guy or Veldanava, perhaps even herself on occasion. But Shizu? That woman had always been quiet, controlled. But now, Velgrynd's lips twitched faintly. TCH. Stupid humans. Always surprising. The battle below shifted. Rimuru raised his hand, and in unison, his subordinates retreated and dropped to one knee, apologizing with such fervor it almost made Velgrynd sneer. So loyal. So utterly devoted. Xian, with her reckless brute strength, lowered her head and admitted her failure. Ranga whimpered but bowed. Benimaru clenched his fists, flames still dancing along his arms, clearly frustrated. Hakuro remained composed, yet his voice trembled with shame. Even Sue, cold and unreadable, offered a silent nod. And then, Veldora spoke. Bro, allow me to take care of this. Let your elder show you how it's done. No, the reply came fast. Sharp. Rimuru didn't even glance back. No, Veldora. This is still within my limits, stay put. Velgrynd frowned. That slime really refused help from Veldora. What was he planning? Rimuru turned to his kneeling warriors and said, now you understand the power difference, don't you? They nodded, their voices unified. Yes, my lord. We are not yet strong enough. Then the training's over, he declared. Let me handle this. Velgrynd's breath hitched. Training? He used Charybdis as training? For them? Unconsciously, her wings beat faster. Was it arrogance? Or confidence backed by something deeper? Rimuru rose. From his back, a set of ethereal wings unfurled, not feathered, not scaled, but curved and elegant, like a demon's, forged of light and essence. He soared upward, rising until he was eye level with the floating abomination. But still, he didn't sense her, she was too high, too well concealed. Velgrynd narrowed her gaze, peering down through the clouds as the swirling energies around Rimuru intensified. Red, silver, blue, and deep purple coalesced into his palm. He spoke to himself. Quietly. Milam's either going to be jealous, excited, or furious after this. Velgrynd blinked. What does that even mean? And then. Stella Nova. The words rang out like a divine decree. His arms stretched forward. Light gathered, then burst. A sun bloomed in the sky. The explosion that followed was blinding. Velgrynd threw up a hand instinctively, shielding her eyes as wind and pressure tore through the sky. For a split second, she almost lost her balance. The clouds above split apart. The ground below rippled in violent tremors. The entire battlefield shook as if the world itself was scorched by Rimuru's fury. Charybdis was no more. Velgrynd stared, silent. Her golden eyes wide with a rare glimmer of awe. That was like Milam's Dragon Nova, she whispered to herself. But it wasn't draconic power. That was Magicule's. Refined. Controlled. Absolute. Just what was that? And then, he dove, effortlessly. Straight through the dispersing mist of his own destruction, Rimuru caught someone. A man, broken and battered, who had served as the vessel, the core, of Charybdis. Alive. Velgrynd's jaw clenched. That slime, no, that person, had not only destroyed one of the most persistent calamities of the sky with a single spell, but he had done it while saving the core. Why do you care so much? She whispered again, eyes dark with a mix of confusion and admiration. You didn't just want victory, you wanted it without death. She watched him float back to the ground, Shizu running to meet him, Milim bouncing on her toes, cheering. The others gathered, weary but alive. Velgryn's wings twitched. She'd seen enough. Her body turned, drifting gently on a thermal wind. She knew where he would go next. The lake. That quiet place he kept returning to night after night. Velgryn's lips curled slightly, pride, fear, and something more tangled in that faint expression, as she soared through the clouds toward the distant clearing below. The lake would be silent, still, but she knew he would come. Just like always, the garden was silent, swathed in twilight hues that shimmered over still water and bowed trees. The moonlight had not yet claimed the sky, but the fading sun left a copper gold glow across the glassy surface of the lake, mirroring drifting clouds and the blurred silhouette of a lone figure standing at its edge. Velgrynd stood there, immaculate, composed, her long, midnight blue hair, done again in twin buns with flowing silken strands, fluttered in the gentle breeze like royal banners. The golden embroidery of her cheongsam shimmered faintly, catching the dregs of sunlight as if dragons themselves were etched in motion across the black silk. Her arms, encased in pristine white gloves, remained folded behind her back. Beneath her golden heels, the trimmed stone path remained unbothered, as though the land itself feared to offend her presence. She was early. She rarely came here. That was their unspoken dance. He arrived, wandered to the lake with a stupidly relaxed smile, and only then did she descend from the heavens to meet him, aloof, untouchable. But today, she stood first, like a fool waiting for something she wouldn't admit. Velgrynd clicked her tongue softly. This is ridiculous, she muttered under her breath, golden eyes fixed on the lake's surface. Why am I even here so early? TCH. Must be boredom. Certainly not because I was curious. The sound of rustling grass, soft footsteps, he came. Velgrynd didn't turn around. She didn't need to. She could sense him, his presence warm and chaotic like summer lightning in a bottle. His magicules were still unsettled, residual flares of his battle with Charybdis lingering in the air around him like stardust. Velgrynd? Rimuru's voice came, puzzled and slightly breathless. You're early? She finally turned her head, just enough to glance at him over her shoulder. He looked surprised. His eyes, those same golden eyes that had confused her so many times before, held a quiet curiosity. The silver blue of his hair caught the amber light, making him feel like someone else for a fleeting second. A change of pace, she said with a light scoff, tilting her chin upward with practiced elegance. Nothing more. I came early so I could leave early. Don't misunderstand. Right. Rimuru scratched his cheek, clearly not buying it, but too tactful, or too afraid, to press the matter. They stood in silence for a heartbeat. A breeze stirred the branches above. Somewhere, birds sang their last note before nightfall. I saw your battle. That made Rimuru blink. You did? Velgrynd turned to face him fully, arms still crossed, her lips curling into a faint, almost imperceptible smirk. You were impressive. The praise made Rimuru blush. He chuckled, looking away. Well, did you, hear the name of the attack? Her smirk deepened. Stella Nova, wasn't it? He nodded, visibly proud. It's a technique derived from a unique skill I developed. Stella, it constantly absorbs magicules and two other types of energy that I still haven't classified properly. But because of that, I can compress and fire it as a mid-class destructive spell. Mid-class. The lake rippled, not from wind, but from the sheer force of her voice. Velgrynd had shouted. Actually shouted. Rimuru nearly jumped back, startled by her uncharacteristic outburst. Wait. Why are you yelling at me? She took a step toward him, eyes flaring. That spell you used, Stellanova, you had the gall to call it mid-class? Are you insane? That explosion? Those magicule readings were at least on par with a low-tier nuclear spell. You nearly unbalanced the sky itself. He looked utterly dumbfounded. What? Seriously? I didn't think it was that strong. Velgrynd clenched her gloved hands. TCH. Idiot. Doesn't even realize the caliber of what he's throwing around. Still flustered, Rimuru awkwardly cleared his throat, clearly wanting to steer the conversation somewhere safer. You mentioned needing time to decide whether to live in Tempest. Have you thought about it? Velgrynd paused,
Her pride faltered for just a second, her gaze slipping away from him. Then, a barely there blush crept up her cheeks as she muttered, "A few weeks. Maybe, a month, maximum."
Rimuru blinked again, surprised. "Really? I thought it'd be like years. You know, given how proud and mysterious and, dragon-y you are." She rolled her eyes but didn't refute it. "I change my mind when I want, and don't mistake it for affection, slime. I simply find your nation curious." "Got it." He smiled, but there was something gentler in it, more personal. The air grew still again. Silence stretched between them, taut and uncertain. Then, Rimuru spoke, softly. "Velgrynd, may I ask you something?" She gave him a side glance. "What now?" He grinned, sheepishly. "So what if I said I like you? I mean, I love you. What would you say?" The words struck her like lightning. Her eyes widened. Her breath caught. Her wings twitched. What? Color flushed her cheeks instantly, deep crimson over pale skin. She turned her face sharply, avoiding his gaze. "It's time for me to leave," she declared, voice rushed. "Don't follow." "Wait, hey." You didn't answer, but it was too late. In a single motion, her crimson wings, resembling the regal, blazing design of her dragon form, spread wide with a sound like thunder wrapped in silk. The wind answered her call, swirling leaves and petals as she rose into the sky, lifting above the trees, beyond the lake, into the night-streaked horizon. Rimuru watched, hand half raised. She was gone. Flying through the clouds, higher than sight, Velgrynd pressed one hand to her chest. Her heart was thundering. Unruly. Unrefined. "Stupid slime," she whispered into the rushing air. Saying something like that with no warning, what is he thinking? She should have scorched him. She should have dismissed it. Mocked him. Told him not to be foolish. But she hadn't. She couldn't. Because deep down, buried under layers of flame and pride and ancient loneliness, a single truth pulsed louder than her wings through the sky. She didn't know what she felt, and that frightened her more than anything else. "He's just Ashura's echo," she told herself. "Nothing more. That's all. He looks like him. Sounds like him. But he's not. And I don't care. I don't." But her hand wouldn't leave her chest, and her lips, despite her efforts, curved into a faint, embarrassed smile. Rimuru's POV ===. It had been a week since the chaos of Charybdis's awakening, and the world around me had not stopped moving for a single breath. The skies had cleared of the mana storms stirred by that ancient beast's emergence, and though the land had begun to heal, a different kind of storm had swept through the continent. A political one, an intricate dance of apologies, revelations, and quietly shifting power balances that threatened to become something far more complex than I had initially prepared myself for. Phobio, one of the guardian generals of the Beast Kingdom Eurazania, and supposedly one of Demon Lord Carrion's most loyal retainers, had knelt before me not in shame, but in confusion. He hadn't known the true weight of his actions, nor the dangerous path he had stumbled down, tricked as he was by the manipulations of two strange individuals who called themselves footmen and Tyr. Clowns by appearance, and tricksters by profession, yet beneath their painted smiles I had sensed something colder. Something far more calculated. Phobio had been used. Literally made into a core for the Charybdis's rebirth, and yet, I hadn't killed him. I could have. Many expected I would. But I didn't, and because of that decision, Carrion himself had come to Tempest. Tall. Golden-haired. Proud. With a presence that seemed to shake the ground beneath our feet just by walking across it, Carrion, the Lion King, bowed his head to me. An apology, genuine and direct, and from that simple gesture came something greater, an alliance. The monster nation of Tempest and the Beast Kingdom Eurazania, united in mutual respect and strength. I never imagined it would happen so soon. I never imagined I would be a ruler worthy of such partnerships. But there it was. Official. Sealed with the press of magicule signatures and shared vows of peace. Master. Forging diplomatic ties with a Demon Lord-class nation is statistically beneficial to Tempest's long-term survival and sovereignty. Success rate of alliance benefits exceeding potential threat. 87.4%. Thanks, Sage. I guess I needed that reassurance, I murmured, standing atop the balcony overlooking the newly expanded town square. Even though I didn't feel like I earned any of this. Emotional doubt detected. Initiating reassurance protocol. Master is performing adequately given circumstances. That sounded just slightly better than, "You're not failing yet." Accurate. That is the subtext. I sighed. 4 days ago, Milam had left Tempest. She didn't say why, not really. Just something vague about responsibilities, and her position as a demon lord, followed by a cheerful giggle and a cloud of destruction as she launched herself into the sky with all the subtlety of a meteor. But I'd seen the glint in her eyes, just beneath the childish exuberance, just past the manic energy. Something was wrong. Something was shifting in her world, and I hadn't yet figured out what. Shizue had seen it too. She hadn't said anything, but she had stood in the center of the square that night long after Milam left, her arms folded and her eyes unreadable behind her half-mask. I knew she sensed it too. That Milam was chasing something only she understood. I wanted to follow her, but my duty was here, for now. 2 days after that, I had gone to Dwargon with Xian, Shuna, Ranga, and Shizue to meet with King Gazel Dwargo himself. A formal visit. One that required etiquette, armor polish, and the mental preparation to navigate the iron-hard expectations of a dwarf king who could carve through nonsense like his enchanted blade through stone. It went, surprisingly well. Gazel approved the alliance between Tempest and Dwargon in full. The rumors of our growing strength, the battle against Charybdis, and the information relayed by his spies must have made it clear. We were no longer just a curious gathering of monsters in a forest. We were becoming something more. A nation. A power. And I was its leader. I still didn't know how I felt about that. Master is exhibiting self-reflective guilt loop. Initiating cognitive clarity mode. Success in leadership is not always accompanied by emotional certainty. Your ability to question yourself is not a weakness, it is the foundation of adaptive governance. Huh. That was actually kind of touching. I am programmed for optimal strategic support and psychological regulation. Emotional comfort is secondary function. I smiled faintly, walking through the restored streets of Tempest, each corner more alive than ever. The citizens were rebuilding the broken stalls. Children played. The aroma of new kitchens and market vendors returned with vigor. It felt like life was pushing forward despite everything. It was only last night that we returned from Dwargon. And it was only this morning that Veldora decided to casually drop a spiritual nuke into my day. "Oh, by the way, Rimuru," he said, mid-sip of tea he was probably pretending to enjoy because of some dramatic aesthetic he picked up from manga. "While you were off consorting with dwarves and demon lords, dear sister Velgrynd paid me a visit." I froze. "What?" "Oh yes, she dropped by. Asked where you and Shizue were. I told her you'd gone to Dwargon. She didn't threaten to obliterate me. Strange, right? She just nodded and left. No flair. No threats. Not even an insult. I was a little disappointed, to be honest." "That's impossible. But it got worse. She also took a book," Veldora added with a grin. "One of your romance novels. What was it called again?" "Forever in Love with You, I think? I just finished it. Excellent drama. The human girl and the wandering hero. Tragic. Passionate. She even took the bookmark with her." I had never felt more physically shaken by a piece of information in my life. Shizue, standing beside me, had stared like someone just told her Velgrynd had developed a taste for Tempest's curry udon and was asking for seconds. What? I managed to say. "She took the book?" Confirmed. Velgrynd's interest in said novel implies behavioral deviation. Emotional analysis. 64.9% chance of introspection or romantic projection. Possibly seeking conceptual framework for unfamiliar emotional responses. Alternate probability. 18.2% curiosity regarding your preferences. Remaining probabilities. Classified as undefined curiosity. Updating subject profile. I don't even know what to do with this. Recommendation. Avoid impulsive reaction. Monitor Velgrynd's future interactions for further pattern analysis. She may be evaluating personal emotional response frameworks using fiction as emotional simulation reference. Sage, are you saying she's insufficient data for confirmation? Hypothesis only. Also, you are blushing. I turned away. Was it possible? Velgrynd, reading that novel. A dragon who practically embodied pride and restraint, delicately flipping pages about forbidden love, lingering kisses, and soul-bonded devotion. The very idea of it shattered my perception of reality. No wonder Veldora looked happy about it. That troll of a dragon was probably already imagining dramatic confrontations and romantic revelations.
But I couldn't ignore the undercurrent of hope in my chest, or the way my heart skipped slightly at the memory of her standing by the lake that night, earlier than usual, graceful and distant, yet strangely present. The way she blushed when I said I loved her, even though she fled before giving an answer.
There was something there. I didn't know what it meant. But for the first time in my life, either as Satoru Mikami or as Rimuru Tempest, I wanted to chase that mystery. Not for power. Not for strategy. Not even for peace. Just because it was her. And that scared me more than any demon lord, any demon, monster, ever could. It happened right after dinner, beneath the lantern-lit roof of my newly furnished central chamber, where Shuna and Shion were still arguing. Again. Over who used too much garlic in the stew. Spoiler. It was Shion, and Ranga had curled under the long dining table, tail thumping lazily as he half listened, half snoozed. I'd just taken my first sip of tea, warm and bitter with the floral hint of bergamot, when a soft, calm voice, quieter than wind brushing a curtain, broke the rhythm of idle Tempest peace.
Rimuru-san, when are you going to save the children? Shizu asked.
The cup paused mid-air, porcelain trembling slightly between my fingers. The steam coiled upward like a memory, and I blinked, hard, because the truth hit me like a blade through mist. I had promised. And somehow, in the midst of building a nation, fighting Charybdis, forging alliances, hosting Milam's unpredictable tempers, and dealing with Veldora's taste in terrible light novels, I had almost let it slide. I plan to leave tomorrow, I said finally, quietly, my voice firm but gentle, catching Shizu's gaze, those ever-burning eyes filled with both gratitude and regret. No worries, Shizu. I haven't forgotten. I never would. Her shoulders relaxed a bit, and for a second she looked lighter. I spent more than half my life trying to save them. I didn't have the answers, but maybe you do. I will, I told her. I'll take care of them. I will save them. That's my promise. The only thing you need to do is stay here in Tempest. Stay? She asked, lips curling slightly in amusement. I nodded. Keep an eye on things while I'm away, especially him. I didn't even need to gesture. Veldora, already lounging like a spoiled cat on the sunken couch, eyes sparkling, wings half unfurled for no reason, lifted a golden brow as though I'd challenged his dignity. Oh ho! Me, you say? He boomed, clearly delighted. Well, in that case, I shall return to my personal cavern. I've constructed a magnificent reading chamber within my old ceiling site, complete with cushions, monolamps, and 12 shelves of manga. You made a room inside your old prison? I asked, baffled. But of course. Veldora declared proudly, arms wide. A chamber of peace, solitude, and instant ramen. I sighed, rubbing my temples. Whatever. Just, don't cause trouble, and don't bother Shizu while I'm gone.
Fear not, I, Veldora Tempest, will maintain absolute decorum and discipline, he said, then ruined it with a wink. Except on Fridays. That's karaoke night.
I swear I'm going to seal you back in that cave one day. Understood. Shall I prepare a containment strategy, Master? No, Sage. We'll put that plan on hold. Acknowledged. Updating Veldora containment options to pending. And so, with the night deepening into a quilt of stars above, I stepped out into the cool garden, gravel crunching beneath my feet as I walked past the mist-laced hydrangeas and toward the center of Tempest's peace. The still, reflective lake that shimmered like a mirror of the heavens. I came here often these days, not just for meditation, but because she always seemed to appear. And tonight, too, she was already there, Velgrynd. She sat on the flat stone at the lake's edge, cross-legged in that impossibly elegant yet surprisingly relaxed posture, one arm draped over her knee, the other holding the small book I now knew all too well, the one with the pink binding and silver script that read, "Forever in Love with You," the romance novel Veldora had so dramatically flaunted. And she was smiling. Actually smiling. Not that arrogant smirk she wore during battle. Not the cold, disdainful curve of lips that spoke of superiority and pride. But something gentler, something human. I stood there a moment, watching her in silence, feeling the breeze stir my cloak and tousle my hair. The moonlight danced across the surface of the lake, and across the curve of her face, casting her in silver fire. Master, your heart rate has increased. Shut up. It is a physiological response consistent with elevated emotional interest. Do you require assistance calming down? I said shut up. I stepped forward, gravel crunching just loud enough to make her flinch, and the change was immediate. Velgryn's spine went straight. She snapped the book shut and whirled around, the cover vanishing behind her back with a guilty speed that was almost comedic if she didn't still radiate so much raw divine pressure. You're late, she said coldly, though a faint pink dusted her cheeks. I smiled. I just thought I'd give you some time. For what? She asked, voice stiff. To read that romance novel you just hid behind you, I said lightly. She froze. Like a statue, a dragon caught in headlights. I was merely skimming it, out of boredom, because my little brother keeps leaving this nonsense around and shoving it in everyone's face. I chuckled. Yeah, I get it. You're just critically analyzing it for academic reasons. She growled, turning away, clearly mortified. That idiot. I told him not to tell anyone. I even threatened to incinerate his stash if he breathed a word. Threats don't work on Veldora. He thinks death is a vacation. I'm going to pulverize him. Hey, calm down, I said, raising my hands, smiling despite myself. It's really not a big deal. I think it's kind of cute. She whipped her head toward me, golden eyes ablaze. Cute? Yeah. Seeing the proud, fiery Velgrynd indulging in cheesy love stories, it's oddly endearing. She looked like she might breathe fire, then didn't. Her wings flexed once, then folded. She huffed and turned back to the lake, clearly trying to recompose herself. It's a good story, she muttered at last. The characters are flawed, but genuine. They remind me of someone. Oh, I asked, sitting beside her. The way the heroine hides her feelings behind pride. The way the hero tries to understand her without forcing her to speak. It's foolish, and yet warm. I blinked. Did you just say something nice about the male lead? She looked away sharply. I said no such thing. We talked for a while, about the novel, about love, about dragons pretending not to cry at tragic epilogues. Her voice, usually so sharp, softened as the conversation stretched, until suddenly she looked down at her hands, frowning. I've talked too much. You don't have to leave, I said, but she was already rising, brushing non-existent dust from her sleek cheongsam, wings twitching impatiently behind her. I'm leaving, she declared. Now. Wait, before you go. She paused. I'm heading to Ingrasia tomorrow. I'll be gone maybe 2 months. She didn't turn around. So, you're welcome to come and go, but try not to be seen by anyone besides Shizue and Veldora. Why? She asked coolly, though her tone had lost its edge. Because I don't want others getting ideas about you. She turned, face unreadable. Ideas? You know, I said, shrugging. About who you are. What you mean to me. Her lips parted slightly. For a moment, no sound came. Then she nodded once. Fine, I will leave something here, so I can sense when you return. Thanks, Velgrynd. That means a lot. She looked away, cheeks faintly flushed. Idiot. Then, without another word, her wings unfurled, scarlet flame catching the moonlight like burning silk, and she took off, a comet of dignity and denial flying eastward into the night. I stood there a long time, watching the sky, the garden silent except for the wind in the trees. Master. Yeah, Sage? You are blushing again. Not a word to anyone. Acknowledged. Secret romantic data encrypted. I sighed, smiling helplessly to myself, as the lake rippled quietly behind me. 2 days later in Ingrasia he moment my feet touched the smooth marble tiles of Ingrasia's bustling capital. I could feel it. The rhythmic pulse of a city deeply embedded in order, magic, and mystery. The towering buildings draped in runic barriers, the streets buzzing with merchants and adventurers from every corner of the continent, and the weight of countless ambitions converging in a single place. I had arrived, finally. Ingrasia, the land where Shizue once called home. The city where her students found hope, and the place where I would make good on a promise carved deeper than any oath, to save those children she left behind, children cursed with unstable spirits and dwindling time. It had been a week and 2 days since the Charybdis incident, a week of forging alliances, sidestepping calamity, and grappling with a Crimson Dragoness who refused to play by the rules of logic or emotion. But right now, my focus had shifted. Shizu's gentle voice echoed in my mind even as I approached the towering spire of the Adventurers Guild headquarters. Rimuru, when are you going to save them? I exhaled, shoulders squared, and pushed open the grand glass doors that, to my surprise, slid open automatically. Wait, are you kidding me? I blinked. Automatic doors. In a medieval fantasy world, with actual sensor-based technology that mimicked Japan's convenience store entrances to an uncanny degree. Explanation. This facility is reinforced by industrial-grade magic engineering. It is highly probable that Yuki Kagarazaka introduced Earth technology. Estimated replication rate, 87%. Thanks, great sage. Honestly, it's weird to see something so familiar in a world that still uses wagons and dragon carts. I stepped through the entryway, greeted by an interior far more advanced than expected. Holographic maps shimmered above reception. Enchanted documents levitated between counters, and a series of mana conduits pulsed with vibrant blue light along the ceiling like fiber optics. It was sleek, clean, modern, and yet, undeniably magical. I approached the front desk, where a bespectacled receptionist, slender, tall, and visibly tired, barely glanced up before offering a rehearsed smile. Welcome to the Freedom Association's Central Guild. How may I help you? I'd like to meet with Grandmaster Yuki Kagarazaka, I said politely, though I could already see her gears turning toward rejection. I'm sorry, sir, she responded, her voice professional. The Grandmaster is currently unavailable without prior appointment. I think you misunderstood, I interjected, my tone tightening as I leaned forward just slightly. I didn't ask for a meeting. I demanded one. Her eyes widened. Then, almost instinctively, she straightened with trained defiance. I'm afraid I still can't allow. Suggestion. Intimidation is within acceptable risk parameters. You are currently building a transnational coalition. Maintaining superiority is strategically justified. Do you wish to proceed? You're always so pragmatic, huh? I whispered under my breath. Then louder, I sighed. Fine. Guess we're doing this the hard way. I released a fraction of my aura, just a taste of the dense, swirling magiculus. A dark violet pressure rolled outward like a crashing tide, filling the floor like creeping fog, dragging gasps and silences in its wake. I didn't even need to say anything. The girl went pale, her shoulders trembling slightly as her knees subtly buckled. Wait here, sir. I'll call him immediately, she stammered, bowing low as sweat beaded at her temple. And just like that, the aura was gone. Perfect, I said with a smile, tone as casual as morning tea. Lead the way, then. As we ascended the polished staircase and passed through guarded magical checkpoints, I kept my senses sharp. Yuki, Shizu said he was kind. The type of guy who could gather people and inspire them. But I had also learned, sometimes the kindest masks hide the most dangerous minds. I had to be cautious. Confirmed. Subject. Yuki Kagarazaka possesses anomalous charisma and unpredictable behavior patterns. Threat level unknown. Recommend situational caution. Got it, I murmured. The receptionist stopped before a grand oak door inlaid with gold-etched runes. She tapped twice, stepped back, and opened it with a graceful gesture. Inside, the chamber was minimalist, but elegant. Bookshelves lined the back wall, a polished desk sat near the center, and behind it stood, him. A boy, barely older than 20, if that, clad in a white high-collared cloak, short black hair tousled like he'd just crawled out of bed, and dark eyes that held more intelligence than they let on. His gaze locked onto me. Who are you? I smiled. Rimuru Ashra Tempest. King of the Monster King, Tempest. He blinked. Then, in a motion that was faster than most humans could follow, he disappeared from his spot and reappeared in front of me with a burst of speed that would have surprised even Xian. His kick came like lightning, a precise crescent arc aimed at my shoulder, but I caught it effortlessly between my fingers, held it midair, and slammed him down into the marble floor with a satisfying thud. He bounced once and skidded backward into his desk, rattling pens and toppling a chair. Ow, ow, ow. Yuki groaned, brushing dust from his cloak as he stood, holding his back. Relax, kid, I said coldly.
If I wanted to hurt you, you'd be dust by now. I'm not your enemy. In fact, I'm an otherworlder too.
Yuki froze. What? He asked, eyes narrowing. You heard me. I came from Earth too. Japan, to be specific. I was once known as Satoru Mikami. Wait, seriously? He blinked again, then a slow grin tugged at his lips. No way. You're Japanese? I thought I was the only one running something. Well, not anymore. It's a long story though, he sighed, plopping back into his chair. Okay then. Long story, huh? Very long, I said, walking forward and taking a seat across from him. Then tell it. We've got time, right? Recommended, focus on forming strategic trust. Monitor for deception. But revealing Shizu's connection may increase cooperation probability.
I leaned back, eyes locked with his, and began. I'm here for the children, the ones Shizu left behind while ago.
It had been approximately 3 hours since I stepped into the sanctum of the Freedom Guild, an experience that felt strangely reminiscent of old-world offices, artificial glass sliding doors, tiled corridors with a scent of sterilized cleanliness, even a holographic panel near the entrance. It all tugged at fragments of memories from my past life. And yet, for all its sterile technology, the atmosphere bristled with something else entirely. Hidden strength, cloaked agendas, and that subtle tension humming just under the skin of this peaceful veneer. Yuki Kagarizaka, Shizu-san's once beloved student, was everything she described on the surface. Friendly, energetic, and a self-proclaimed believer in freedom and balance. But I wasn't some clueless salaryman anymore. Master, the subject known as Yuki Kagarizaka, attempted to employ Class 4 mental interference during your verbal exchange. Interference neutralized.
I remember freezing for just a second when Great Sage whispered that. The friendly sparkle in Yuki's eyes suddenly seemed a little too bright. He smiled a little too wide. I knew then that he was playing a deeper game than he let on.
Still, I played my part. I told him about my death in Japan, my reincarnation into this world, the foundation of Tempest, and even hinted at my nation's alliances. But I omitted key names: Veldora, Velgrynd, even Shizu. Secrets were currency in this world, and I wasn't about to cash mine in for trust that hadn't been earned. Yuki, for his part, talked about the kids, 5 of them, all powerful beyond their years, summoned like so many others from Earth to serve unknown agendas. Kenya Masaki, the hot-headed loudmouth with a hero complex. Ryota Sekiguchi, the silent one who watched like a hawk. Gail Gibson, the level-headed big brother. And the girls. Alice Rondo, blonde and brash like a small lioness, and Chloe Aubert, quiet and kind, with eyes like deep wells couldn't quite read.
They were dying, all of them, too much energy summoned into tiny bodies without a proper vessel or guidance.
Shizu-san had tried to save them, spending what little remained of her life searching for a solution, and now, I had picked up her will, my promise. And that was why I now stood in the hallway of Freedom Academy, my slime core simmering with mixed anticipation and anxiety. I wasn't just a nation's leader or a monster. I was about to be a teacher. Yuki grinned, brushing a hand through his jet black hair. The kids are inside. I'll leave you to it. As for me, I've got about 72 volumes of Hero Chronicle to binge, so don't disturb me unless the world's ending. He gave me a wink and sauntered off. Master, the subject is no longer within auditory range. You may proceed with caution. Thanks, Great Sage. Also, remind me later to scrub those manga pages in case he tries to embed tracking spells or something. Acknowledged. Also, please note, you now owe me one additional favor. Why does that sound so ominous coming from you? It is simply a fact, Master. I sighed, placed a hand on the polished brass knob, and opened the classroom door. A bright magical sigil flared to life, an attack spell. A fireball shot toward my face. I blinked, and slapped it aside with one casual hand, dispersing the fire into harmless particles of mana. Silence. 5 kids stared at me, jaws somewhere on the floor.
Kenya stood up, his hands still glowing with residual fire magic. What just happened? I hit you with my best fireball.
I stepped inside with a half smile. Not bad, but try not to immolate strangers, it's rude. Guile narrowed his eyes. Who are you? I'm your new teacher, I said cheerfully. Name's Rimuru Ashra Tempest. Starting today, I'll be taking over your lessons. Ryota crossed his arms. We don't need a teacher. Kenya echoed him. Yeah, we already had Shizu-sensei. We don't want anyone else. Alice puffed her cheeks. You're not even strong looking. Chloe didn't speak. She just looked at me with uncertain, wide eyes, her fingers tugging nervously at the hem of her robe. I sighed dramatically, clasping my hands behind my back. All right then. What if I told you Shizu-sensei herself sent me here to save you? Liar, Kenya shouted. She's dead, Ryota added quietly. Guile looked down. She wouldn't abandon us. I took a slow step forward, letting my aura gently leak out, not the full force, but just enough to let them feel that I wasn't joking. Listen, kids, I said, my voice quiet but firm. She gave me her final wish, to protect you. You're all going to die if someone doesn't help. The magical energy inside your bodies will tear you apart eventually. She knew it. I know it, but I can fix it. Chloe's eyes widened. Ryota clenched his fists. Alice looked like she might cry. How do we know you're not lying? Guile asked. I smiled gently. I'll make you a deal. Be good students, train under me, and I'll find a way to let you see Shizu again. Not an illusion. Not a fake. Her. Kenya opened his mouth to argue, but paused. Alice sniffled. You, promise. I promise, I said, placing a hand over my heart. A real promise. No tricks. The room was dead silent for 5 seconds, then. Okay. But if you lie, I'll burn your hair off, Kenya shouted. Don't touch him, Alice growled. He's our new teacher now. We'll follow, Ryota said simply. I trust him, Guile murmured. Chloe nodded once. He feels warm. I blinked. Master, the probability of developing emotional attachment in these subjects has increased by 73.4%. Recommend caution. Oh no, I'd just gotten myself roped into the deadliest battlefield of all. Elementary education. Still, as I watched those kids bicker, cry, smile, and argue all at once, something inside me settled, like a strange peace. Shizu-san, I whispered in my heart. I hope I can do this right. Master, you are overhyping your role. Teaching is merely a task of guided information transfer. You've obviously never met kids before. That is accurate. However, statistical prediction indicates you will survive with minimal trauma. That's not very reassuring, great sage. It was not meant to be. And thus, with 5 emotionally volatile, overpowered students under my care, a smile that didn't quite fade from my lips, and a contract signed in soul-bound promises, I stepped into my new life as their teacher. May the heavens help me. == To be continued ==